being here. So I would like to update you on the work we're doing at the University of Plymouth for the environmental impact assessment of the seawater air conditioning system. To begin with, I would like to mention that we have two sites at the UK that we're looking into. One of them is the Brixham Laboratory, and the second one is the National Lobster Hatchery at Newlyn. So we have 5 tasks that we're looking into. The first of them is to find out and investigate the environmental constraints that are regarding the seawater air conditioning system. The second of them is to model and see what kind of impacts the Swac system can have on the surrounding seawater based on using computational fluid dynamics. Furthermore, we also want to investigate how we could optimize the Swac system and see its potential for aqua farming, and finally find out all the necessary permits and licenses that someone would need in order to operate a full Swac system either in the UK or in France. So in the following slide here, we can see that this is the first of the demonstrator sites of the UK. This is the Brixham Laboratory, which is affiliated to the University of Plymouth, and there we already have the Swac system, but it has not been run for a lot of years. So our first task is to reawaken it and evaluate how it works, optimize it, and find out a little more about the system. The second one on the following slide is the National Lobster Hatchery at Newlyn. Currently they do not have a Swac system there, but they're interested to see if one would be appropriate for their needs. Following, I would like to go back to Brixham Lab and give you a little more details about what we have there. So as I said, we already have a Swac system, and on the picture in the middle we can see a screenshot from Google Maps. It's just showing the location of the 2 intakes that we have that abstract water for Swac and any other purposes of the lab. And the red dot is where the discharge is currently. Based on the water, it can be either above surface in low tide or submerged if the thing high tide situation. So on the right, it's something similar. It just shows the bathymetry. It's colored based on the depth of the waters. And the black dots are the location where NKE is going to install buoys for us to measure the water quality during, before and after the operation of the Swac system. And following, yes, so here it just gives a little more details about what we're going to measure using the probes provided by NKE. So based on our literature review and what the probe would actually do, we identified a few parameters that we would like to measure. So we'd like to know the depth, we'd like to know the salinity, the acidity of the water. The temperature is obviously very important for Swac. Yes, and this is having, and we also are going to deploy a boat, so we're going to be able to move one of the buoys around in order to capture a bigger area. And on to the second task that we are doing at the University of Plymouth, which is about computational fluid dynamics. So we are mainly focused on doing a numerical modeling investigation to find out to investigate the discharge dispersion of Swac effluent. So for that, we are using a Reynolds average Navier-Stokes solver, which will give us a transient simulation. Now, in order to have a more macroscopic view of what is happening around Swac effluent discharge, we are using also an analytical model just to give us a steady state simulation, which is not as accurate as CFD, but it can give us a wider view. Now, both of these models will be customized for the sites in the UK and France as well. Here we can see some early results of the RCFD solver. This is a 2D case. What is interesting here is at the right, there is a discharge that is starting water at 10 degrees higher than the ambient temperature. And the screenshot just show what would happen low, mid, and high tide. Now for this simulation, it's very simple. There's no current and there's no wave in the domain. But if we go on to the following one here, it is a three-dimensional one where we also have current in the domain.
Yeah, but we won't. Something is crossing it. Well, I know people don't it. So you're experiencing a new fish. Okay. It's something else. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so here we have a 3D case where we also include the effects of current in the domain. So these are three sensitivity tests where we increased the current velocity in the domain. There is a discharge that is throwing water into the surrounding numerical domain at 10 degrees higher than the ambient temperature. And this is something that we're going to build on and potentially include the effect that the waves can have on the effluent as well. And in addition with CFD, as I mentioned, we are also looking into a more simple analytical model. To give you a quick summary, just the way it works is just takes inputs regarding the effluent, some ambient conditions, and a very simple geometry, and produces a report based on the effluent characteristics. For this presentation, we just have a case based on July 21, when we identified that there was a spike in the ambient water temperature. And based on the regulations, that would give us only an excess of 2 degrees that we would be allowed, that the effluent would be allowed to have at the end of the mixing zone. And at the right is just the result showing that this was achieved within 2 meters of the discharge. The water quality standards were met. Now this was only 2 meters because the flow rate at the Brixham lab is supposed to be very low, and this model is just going to be more useful in order to talk with probably environmental agencies to show that what we are doing is within the regulations, and it's going to be very easy to change the configuration, change the inputs, and evaluate different cases. Moving on, our third task is to optimize the SWAC system. But in order to do that, first of all, we will have to run the SWAC system that we have at Brixham. And here we have a schematic that shows how our system is configured. So in the at the left is just the position of the pumping station where we have 2 pumps that abstract water, and the middle is simple schematic that shows the how water is going from this pumping station throughout the system and at the heat exchangers. So we're also looking how we can reduce the impact that the SWAC system can have on the environment. We also have been in talks with DeProfundis, and they have suggested a few different things that we can do to optimize our system. Quickly to summarize them, that would be to either increase the pipe diameter so we have more flow rate, to use a booster pump, an automatic pump frequency regulator, or potentially installing a reversible heat pump. Finally, another thing that we are looking into is how we could use the SWAC discharge effluent as an intake for other activities in the laboratory. So instead of throwing directly into the sea, just using it for other purposes, and that maybe have economical or environmental impacts as well if we can reduce the temperature of the effluent. So the next task is evaluating the potential that SWAC system can have for aquaculture farming. And the National Lobster Hatchery is leading this part, and they are producing a report to find out how this can be done. It is important to say that this is going to be very depending on the species, because for a lot of marine species, even small changes in their ideal conditions like temperature, water salinity, acidity, can have very, very big impacts on them. And our last task is finding out the permits and licenses that someone would need to run a SWAC system. So here is a simple flow chart showing what would be needed in the UK. So if there's a new SWAC system, there's going to be construction to lay pipes and do work in the sea. So that would first of all require authorization and a marine license from the Marine Management Organization. And typically that would take between 13 to 15 weeks from the time of assigning a case officer. Along with that, an environmental permit would be needed, either for abstraction if the flow rate is larger than 20 cubic meters per day, and also for discharge, where there's thermal and other pollutant criteria that have to be met. This is done by going through the environmental agency, who are also responsible on identifying the length and the size of the mixing zone that will be appropriate on a case-by-case basis. And finally, we have also, this is a work in progress, but we also have looked into the French regulations. And this is a quick summary of what we have so far. So someone would, in France would need to be working in operation of within the Water Act of the Environmental Code. And also, it is important, in most cases, an environmental impact assessment would be needed, especially if the flow rates if the flows that are involved in the SWAC system are higher, larger than 30 cubic meters per hour. Finally, because there's going to be work laying pipes on a public domain authorization by the authority that holds the rights for this domain have to be taken. For listening, I'm very happy to answer.
Okay, thank you very much.